one thing that really concerns me is there could be a real hot topic of the moment, and then after a few weeks, something new comes along and we completely forget about what it was that we were all so passionate about. And I'm really scared that mental health will fall into that category. Right now, the world is at a standstill, and lots of people are having to deal with mental health. But when we get back to normal, those people who were suffering with mental health prior to the current world situation, I'm really scared that they're going to be left behind. And we see lots of businesses these days talking a lot about mental health and reaching out to the staff and making that connection. And all of that stuff is great. But what happens when we go back to normal? Do those people get left behind? Are businesses going to say, okay, right, well, we're back on track. We need to get our profits in. We need to focus on driving the business. Mental health is so nuanced, and I'm really worried that actually life will go on, and then we'll be trying to get people back to work who simply are not ready yet or need a bit of extra help. And so when it comes to mental health in the workplace, I think that there has to be a real spotlight on mental health still. And I really believe that just because we are going back to normal, it doesn't mean that all the things that all of these great businesses are doing to connect with their staff stops. Mental health in itself is completely different from person to person. And so to treat mental health with a single paintbrush stroke, it's just not going to work. You know, I might have anxiety and depression, and somebody else could have the same, but the way that we deal with it, our individual coping mechanisms are completely different. When it comes to coping mechanisms, again, we all have different approaches. So it could actually be the case that you cannot not hide it on your face how you feel, and that is it. And then there are some people who go to great lengths to fake it until you make it. And it could be that you create this happy, bubbly persona to get through your working day, and ultimately you are playing a role, you're playing somebody else. That's not exactly you yourself. And that is your coping mechanism. That's how you get through. And that's okay too. The thing is with anxiety is there are so many irrational fears that your mind conjures that throughout your working day you spend so much time scared that you're going to mess up, either messing up a customer's order or messing up in an interview, and it becomes an obsession trying to not mess up and thinking that other people think that you're messing up. And actually, 9 times out of 10, you're probably doing a really, really good job, but your mind will never ever allow you to see that you are doing well. And the second that you are doing well, it always feels like it's just there waiting for you to fail so it can say, I told you so. And so sometimes when you are employing your fake it till you make it strategy to get through your shift, if that persona that you are using is really strong, confident, bold, and outspoken, you can kind of take some of that energy with you, and it goes from being fake to kind of actually being real, and gives you the strength and confidence to do your job. I know that this is going to sound really strange, but for those 8 hours of the day, you get a brief glimpse into what it feels like to be normal, until your shift is over and you leave, and then you are back to where you were before. At the same time, those individuals need to feel comfortable enough that they can be open and honest with their employers, and that their employers are going to listen and not reprimand them for feeling how they do. Mental health really isn't one size fits all. So there's a whole spectrum, and it really depends on the individual where they sit on that spectrum. This is something that you deal with not just on a weekly basis or a day-to-day basis, or every now and then. It's normally almost every minute of every single day, and you're in a constant battle with your mind, which will feed you consistently negative thoughts on absolutely everything. So if you think about waking up, having the motivation to get out of bed when everything in your head is telling you that you're not good enough, you're not worth it, your life means nothing, you are worthless, somehow that person picks himself up, gets dressed, travels into work, and gets to work ready to do a shift. If you are one of those people, really well done to you. Well done to you for getting there. And as an employer, you need to understand that this is what that person is going through before they even get to your business. And depending on what you do for a job, if you're sat in an office and you're alone and you can just sit and work on a laptop, you're probably going to be okay. You can probably make it through that shift and get your work done. But in other industries, for example, hospitality or retail, not only have you got to make that effort to get to work in the first place, you then have to put on the performance. You need to deliver great customer service. You need to have a smile on your face. There are 20 to 30 different people within your team that you need to constantly interact with. And meanwhile, before you've even got to work, you've expended so much energy just to keep on going, just to keep a smile on your face, just to beat your mind from telling you that you are not worth it, to then have to stand there and deal with customers head on, deal with team members head on. And you can finish that shift, and by the end of that shift, you are drained. Your energy is gone completely. And so you get back home, and for some people, home could even be the root cause of the depression. You could be going back into a completely toxic environment. And the thing with depression is it doesn't allow you to sleep, because the second that you put your head down on that pillow, all of those negative thoughts scream even louder, to the point where you will probably fall asleep around about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And then you know what? At 7 o'clock, your alarm goes off again, and you need to start that cycle again because you need to pay the bills. some people, going to work is like going to a refuge, because you can find yourself in work and yet everything that is wrong with your outside life becomes a blur, and you can just stay focused on your job, and it gives you things to do. It preoccupies your mind and it becomes a safe space. And if we don't support these people who have mental health issues in the workplace, then what happens is that one safe space that you have then becomes another toxic environment. And then that's when things spiral out of control even further, because you don't have a safe home to go to, and then you have an awful work environment, and then that's when things lead to disaster. And from an employer point of view, how to combat that is actually really simple. As I said, it's a simple conversation. For example, in my business, if I can see that one of my team members is struggling, it could be as simple as saying, listen, you go and take 5 minutes outside, have a quick break, and then come back in. All that does is allow that one person to go outside, catch a breath when they are clearly overwhelmed, reset themselves, and then come back. But if, as bosses, we stand there and shout at them for not being productive enough, then we are adding to that pressure and adding to the negative experience of that person, and therefore fueling that person's mental health issues. And what we have to be aware of is, for some of those people who are working and really enjoy being in work because it is their safe space, if we don't protect them as bosses, that person will never ever grow, because in their mind they will think that they can never be more than what they are, because that is what their mind tells them every single day. When actually, if we can just give them a bit of support, you don't have to be their counselor, you don't have to give them advice. Sometimes it's just about listening. And in turn, if you feel comfortable enough as an employee to be able to have these conversations with your boss, it kind of empowers you and shows you that your boss has value in you, and that has significant power. By giving that employee the power to overcome that awful mindset, it will help to push them to do even better at their job. And you know what? It will show them that actually they may have the potential to progress even further. And for those people who are suffering with mental health, and you might sit there and think, or your mind might sit there and tell you that you can never progress because of your mindset, because of your illness, that is categorically not true. With the right level of support, you can do it. This isn't somebody telling you who's studied mental health from a textbook. I'm telling you because I've lived through it and I'm living through it. I'm a general manager of a successful business. And if I can do it, you can do it too. Don't let your head win. Don't give up.